Hello, folks. This is the debut episode of Knocking Out with Kevin, and I am joined by top contender in the Bellator Middleweight division, Mr. John Salter. Listen, it's an honor to have you here. How are we doing down in North Carolina?
I'm doing well. We're doing good. Pretty much back to normal. How about you?
Things here in New York are pretty tight. Trying to live cautiously by whatever the governor says. One of the key things that has been keeping me motivated, to keep pushing this MMA, the UFC, you guys in Bellator coming back, providing us with fights. Honestly, thank you. Because listen, quite frankly, it's a hard sacrifice to ask a fighter during a pandemic, hey, we need you to go away from your family. We need you to go away from your normal life, go into training camp, come prepared to fight in front of no audience. It's a lot of sacrifice. Give me your experience of how things were when they offered you the fight and you took it.
Um, Obviously we were hoping to get something before too long, so I was happy when we got the offer. I got it on a little shorter than normal notice.
Oh, you might have.
We got away from everybody, but it was worth it, and glad that Bellator was able to make it happen.
So, how much time did you have between the fight offer and the fight to have a training camp, a fight camp put in?
Obviously, normally we like to get a little more time than that. But that was plenty of time. I was already in good shape. I knew something was going to be coming. So, this time particularly, I didn't really need more than that.
All right, so coming into this, your only loss in Bellator was to former champ Rafael Lovato Jr., who had to step away due to a medical condition. One of the key things you told during the post-fight interview after your fight at Bellator 243 was it Bellator 243 or was it Bellator 244? Bellator 244. My bad.
44.
44. So one of the key things you said was, "Hey, if Gegard isn't coming, I'm down to step in to fight Lima for the championship." Now, obviously, Scott Coker has, confirmed that Gegard's coming over to the States to fight, so they're going to be setting up. Now, let me ask you that: would you be ready to take an opponent on the same card they're fighting and be ready to step in case anything happens?
Yeah, that would make sense. I'd be happy with that. I think that would be really the most logical thing to make sure if that fight does fall through, that somebody's ready to step in and make sure we're able to get a middleweight champ.
All right. So, in case, the championship isn't your call right now, do you have an opponent in mind? Who do you want to fight?
There's nobody particularly. My focus is on the title. That's what I want right now. So I'm not really looking at anybody else. I know there's some guys in the division that have done pretty well. I think we got a couple of undefeated guys in the division right now that there's a lot of hype behind them. So I'd be happy to go take that away from some people if that's an option. But the main thing I'm focused on right now is getting that title shot.
All right. So, no one particularly on mind. Now, okay. So, right now, Gegard is, the top contender for the title, while Scott Coker wants to pull in welterweight champion Douglas Lima down up to 185 to challenge for the belt. Uh, First off, Gegard Mousasi, a credentialed MMA, respected fighter. How do you see yourself matching up against the dream catcher, Gegard Mousasi?
The thing with Mousasi is he's very good everywhere, but I don't think he has that just world class elite status in particular spots. Um, where my wrestling and jiu-jitsu is world class, And even getting in his face on stand-up, I think he's got to respect my wrestling so much that, it gives me options on the feet to be able to land where maybe if it was just kickboxing, I wouldn't be able to.
Mm. So the it factor when it comes to his style of fighting isn't there. All right. So compared to Gegard Mousasi, Douglas Lima, he's a guy that can, honestly, the only person I think I can compare Douglas Lima to that I've seen fight is Justin Gaethje with those vicious leg kicks, right? When he whips them, I feel my own leg break. Like, I could just watch. So, against a different stylistically type of guy, a guy with great jiu-jitsu, who can, who knows how to stand up. How do you see yourself matching up against a smaller Douglas Lima?
Fighting, and I'm not bigger than him. I mean, Lima's a very big guy. He would be a good size 185er, but he dwarfs everybody at 170. So he's moving up to a weight class where guys are not going to be smaller than him. So I think that's a big factor. And another big factor is me being a southpaw, that right calf kick that he likes to throw so much is going to be a little further away from me. So, but usually you can't really get in his range. If you're a right-handed guy, you can't step in his range because he's going to blast your calf. As a southpaw, I can get in there a little closer and I can go to work a little more.
All right, so you gave me your stylistic matchup. So coming up in your fight, coming up with your last fight with Kaplan, was there anything going into the fight that you wanted to showcase? Like, hey, this fight I wanted to show that with my grappling I can dominate the fight. Was there like anything you wanted to show in the last fight?
No, I'm not trying to show things in fights. I think if you do that, you have a very short-sighted mindset of the fight game. Because number one, you try to show things. It's a good way to get hurt or lose. But number two is, why on earth would I want to show you an ability I have if I don't have to? Because everybody's studying tape all the time. So I'm trying to get in and out with the least amount of exposure as possible. So that way, when I need it, nobody knows I've got it.
I mean, yeah, you went 3 rounds with Andrew. Like during the fight, I think I asked you this question already. You could hear the commentators. Like, one of the key things was you managed to get him mount him a couple of times. So whenever the commentators saw you mounting him, they're like, okay, you got him in mount. You're working him. You're hand fighting with him. And Big John was like, Big John was key on saying, hey, go for the finish, go for the finish. And me personally, like, listen, as an MMA fan, you want the finish. You want the blood. You want the gore. You want to see the guy tap out, or even possibly black out. What was going through your mind each time as you mounted? Was he being slippery, or was he being difficult while you were mounting him?
Well, number one, he's a good grappler. He's hard to hang on to. He scrambles well. But I'm hearing so many people saying things like, "Oh, you got to step out to the side to finish an arm triangle." Well, I'm sure if you're a white belt or a blue belt, you think that. But when you get to a certain level of jiu-jitsu, you understand your better arm triangle is from the mount. So, everybody's saying that. That's fine. People just don't understand what they're watching. But, if you look at where I finished him, it was from mount. I did submit him with that arm triangle. And, if you don't have an arm triangle suck in, it doesn't matter if you step out the side control or stay in mount. So I was working for the finish the whole time. There was never a time that I wasn't trying to finish him. I was just waiting until I could get my shoulder in the right spot. And he's a good grappler. He was not going to give it to me. I had to wait till he was beat down enough that I was able to kind of force him into making a mistake, and then I finished it immediately after that.
Yeah, listen, contrary to whatever these people on social media think, a lot of recently, I don't know if it's been in the Dana White's Contender Series, but people have been finishing arm triangles off mount. And if you got the arm length and you got the the muscle force to like input the pressure, then you're fine. So listen, obviously you're a great grappler. Do you have a favorite submission, like that you go to in case in fights that you always like to use?
I like that that mounted arm triangle a lot. Number one, because for MMA, it's the safest thing I can do. Another probably one of my favorite submissions is a Kimura, but it's just tough because when you've got it's in a jiu-jitsu tournament, I'm going to go for a Kimura a lot more because it's not so dangerous to lose position. But in MMA, even in that fight, he left his arm hanging out there for a Kimura a couple times, and I didn't take it just because it's such a dangerous submission to go for in MMA because anytime you take your weight off somebody with no shirts on, it's hard to hang on to them. That's probably my favorite go-to thing, and it sucks that it's something that's not your best bet in an MMA fight.
Honestly, the first ever submission I ever heard of was the Kimura, and that's only because I think at that time Brock Lesnar transitioned from the UFC back into WWE, and he had the new finisher, which was the Kimura lock. So that was my first time seeing that. And when Brock Lesnar, he's a beast, he's a monster. When you see that guy taking control of a small dude's arm and snapping it, you think it's broken. So it's a pretty dangerous submission. Listen, right now you're up and about in the in the COVID pandemic. You got any COVID stories for us to share? For the viewers to hear and listen to. Oh, we might have lost it. Let's check. Hey, did you get my last question, or was I breaking up? Hey, John,
Hello?
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Sorry, I think with your driving, we just lost a little connection there. Listen, I was just asking. Right now, you're obviously in COVID. Do you have any funny COVID stories? You want the viewers to share, funny stories that happened so far in training or just in everyday life?
Yeah, we've had a lot of our training partners get COVID, but nobody's been sick. It's all been stuff where people, wouldn't really have known and just went to get checked to be safe, and then turned out to have it, and just had to quarantine for a little while. But we haven't had anybody really be sick or anything. It's just been a nuisance. So we've been very fortunate when it comes to that.
All right. I mean, when you went over to Connecticut for for the fight, how was the whole Bellator and like the safety net experience?
I'd say an annoyance that you've got to quarantine, but you got to do that anywhere. We've got to be careful, to make sure the fight can happen. So I just appreciate that Bellator is able to make it happen. I know it's very tough on them, and I think they did a very good job. It's very professional, and as long as we get to fight, I can handle a slight nuisance of having to quarantine.
All right. So obviously during this time, I know you're a very religious man. For me personally, not being able to go to church and celebrate mass every day has been very hard on me personally. But you being a Christian man, how has it like affected, your faith, and how has it strengthened? How has it been?
Luckily we're able to go to church here, so that's not an issue. But yeah, there for a little while we weren't able to go to church. We had to have drive-up services and watch online, and you hate that, but for a short amount of time, that's something you've got to do. And that hasn't shaken our faith or anything like that. We know that God's got His hands on us no matter how we've got to do this. And like I said, fortunately, we've got a great church that's back open, and you forget. I always love going to church on Sundays, but especially now, you're just so excited to get in there and see people.
Yeah, I mean, for us, we'll be going back soon, so I'll be happy. Looking up, what did you think of the last pay-per-view, with Ryan Bader and Vadim Nemkov? Did you think it was like a changing of the guard moment?
Yeah, I thought that obviously I'm a Bader fan, always have been. But I thought there was a real possibility Nemkov might be able to walk away with that one. That's a guy that doesn't make a whole lot of mistakes, and I think he really, now that John Jones has moved up to heavyweight, there's a possibility Nemkov is the best 205er in the world, you know. And I thought Bader did a great job in the first round, but that second round, Nemkov, you know, just showed what a monster he is.
The most beautiful thing was to watch the Bellator put up a picture of Fedor watching Vadim on the press conference stand as he's watching, as he's answering the question. It was beautiful. Let me ask you this: you're 185 pounder. Do you see yourself going up to 205 possibly later on?
I'm not big enough to 5. There's guys I would have big.
Hold up, John. I think you're breaking up. So let's see. Let me see, how does this work? Okay, sorry, John. You were breaking up when you were giving your response. So do you mind repeating that one more time?
Yeah, I was just saying I'm not a big enough guy to fight 205. Those guys are a lot longer and taller than me, and so it's just not an option for me.
I understand. Yeah, me being from Long Island, this is the hometown of Chris, the All-American Weidman. So, I'm a big fan of Chris, and watching him go up against Dominic Reyes, I had big hopes, him possibly challenging John Jones, and unfortunately, he got he didn't get the result that he wanted to get. So, I understand it's a big transition. 20 pounds it's a lot of weight. Now, with the championship in mind, you're at the ripe age of 35, you're in your prime. How much longer do you see yourself in the sport?
I haven't really considered that too much right now. The main thing is getting to the title, and then I'll start making those kind of decisions and thinking about that more.
Yeah, I understand, right. You don't want to think about the end of the race while you're still in the race. So, listen.
Exactly.
I understand, for a lot of people, some people have the whole map set out, the whole road to the title, how many more fights I got left. But I like the way you're approaching it. You're like, hey, I'm in the race right now. There's no need for me to look and see how far the end goal is. If it's, you don't want to spook yourself sometimes. So listen, have you been keeping up with the UFC much, or do you just strictly stay with Bellator?
I keep up with the UFC some. Got several training partners that fight there, so try to keep up with their divisions and what's going on with them.
All right, so then I guess you must know the biggest middleweight fight is coming up with Paul Acosta versus Israel Adesanya. Both are strikers, but different stylistically. Give us your thoughts, honestly. How do you see that fight going?
I think it's going to be a good fight for Israel. We see him be more exciting and more dominant anytime he fights a guy that moves forward, and Paul Acosta is going to move forward. So I think that's going to be a good day for Israel. I know Costa's got a lot of power, so when he lands, it could change the fight real quick. But Israel's accurate and long. I think it's just going to be a good fight for Israel.
All right, so I'm gonna transition into a little fantasy booking here. Now, if somehow Bellator and UFC pulled off a trade, and you got traded, and you were put up against the current champion Israel Adesanya, how do you see that fight going?
Gus is a tough guy. You got to work really hard to get inside on him, and once you do, you better never let him out of there because he's going to hurt you coming out. So I think that's the guy you've got to take your time. Don't go forward unless you're ready to go, and got to put him against the cage and not let him off. I think constant forward pressure with him is a bad idea, and if you ever close that distance, and then lose it, then he hurts you right after. So I'd have to come up with a really good game plan for him.
Yeah, Adesanya, like, each fight goes, he shows you a different part of your game. When it comes to you, do you think there's any aspects of your game that you say that, hey, I need to, if I need to get ready for the title, this is what I need to, sharpen?
I think you got to do that with everything that you do all the time. So I wouldn't say, there's one aspect or another I'm working on. I've got to work on everything all the time.
All right, I get you. Yeah, especially when it comes to the title fight, you have to be ready for everything. Honestly, like, seeing your grappling skills at Bellator 244 was great. Like, the way you waited for the takedown, you weren't rushing in. And then as, you took your time advancing position, it was great. Listen, great chatting with you, honestly. Christian man, Bellator fighter. Anything else you want to say to the fans out there? Any shout outs, support, whatever you need to say.
First of all, thank you to everybody that's that watches. We wouldn't have a sport if it wasn't for them. And then for everybody I train with at Salty Dog and Jim O, Joe Selecki, who's in the UFC, Jamie Pickett just got signed to the UFC last night. Probably my main training partner that doesn't even fight anymore, but just makes all the difference in the world for me now is Corey Crumpler. And then we've got all the guys at Jim O, Empa, and Brian Barberina, Scott Holtzman, and Jeff Jimmo, who makes all the difference in the world for us. Just appreciate all them. And then my wife, who deals with me being in training camp all the time and having to travel to train, can't do it without that support.
I know. Listen, you need us. Looks like you have a great support system behind you. I'm happy to be talking to you. Listen, when you win the championship, make sure you lock down an interview with me, because next thing you know, I feel like I'm helping boost your career over here, and giving you shout outs and everything. So listen, thanks a lot, John. I hope you stay safe out there in North Carolina, and looking forward to seeing great things from you, honestly.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, and this is me signing
out.
Have a good one. On the first episode of Knocking Out with Kevin. Everybody stay safe and enjoy.